U.S. intelligence says Trump's 2 to 3 week timeline is wrong, warning the Iran war is far from over. American spies warn that Iran's strike power is still largely intact. CNN says about half of Iran's missile launchers survived the U.S. Israeli attacks. Iranian military issues a sinister warning that the biggest attacks may still be to come. The report comes as U.S. President Donald Trump says the Iran war is nearly complete.
Tonight, I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran.
The threat to the Strait of Hormuz remains alive, as Iran keeps its cruise missiles protected and ready. U.S. intelligence now assesses that Iran's missile and drone power is far from destroyed, warning that weeks of strikes have not broken its ability to hit back across the region. The assessment says roughly half of Iran's missile launchers are still intact even after weeks of heavy U.S. and Israeli strikes on its military infrastructure. CNN reported this U.S. intelligence warning, citing multiple anonymous sources who described Iran's remaining firepower as a serious ongoing threat. The same assessment says Iran still has thousands of one-way attack drones in its arsenal, giving it plenty of capacity for further waves of strikes. One source warned that Iran is still very much poised to wreak havoc throughout the Middle East, with enough missiles and drones left to sustain the conflict. Roughly half of Iran's missile launchers remain intact despite 5 weeks of U.S. Israeli strikes. Thousands of one-way attack drones have survived, leaving around 50% of Iran's drone arsenal still in play. A large share of Iran's coastal defense cruise missiles is intact, keeping the Strait of Hormuz under threat. Iran's launchers and cruise missiles have been moved underground into tunnels and caves, complicating U.S. targeting. The IRGC Navy retains roughly half its power, with hundreds, if not thousands, of small boats and unmanned vessels left. An intelligence source says Iran can still wreak absolute havoc throughout the entire region despite heavy losses. The intel report says Iran's military has been degraded and key leaders killed, including Khamenei and security chief Ali Larijani. CENTCOM says U.S. forces have hit more than 12,300 targets inside Iran since the war began, underscoring the scale of the ongoing air and missile campaign. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth says Iranian ballistic missile and kamikaze drone attacks are down about 90%, pointing to what he calls major progress in degrading Iran's strike power. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell has dismissed reports about Iran's remaining capabilities as completely wrong, insisting Tehran is far weaker than some intelligence leaks suggest. Israeli officials put the share of Iran's remaining operational launchers even lower, estimating that only about 20 to 25% are still able to fire after weeks of strikes. Trump said U.S. operations in Iran could be wrapped up in 2 to 3 weeks, suggesting the war was entering its final phase and could be brought to a close quickly.
We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible, and they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I've traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something. I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil, and I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, "Please, sir, please finish the job," every one of them. And we are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history.
Time reported that Iran's massive retaliation against American targets in the region shattered the idea that Tehran would limit itself to symbolic strikes. The magazine says Pete Hegseth had expected a carefully calibrated response, not a wider conflict. This sharply contrasts with Trump's picture of a decimated regime on the brink of military collapse, exposing a deep gap between political claims and intel assessments. Amid these developments, Iran says it will gradually increase missile strikes on U.S. and Israeli targets, signaling that the confrontation is likely to intensify rather than fade.